Welcome to the second season of our forum Hammurabi Tablet. Before we start, I would request all of you to give a big applause for starting this second season of Hammurabi Tablet. This is all because of your love and attendance for our programs in such a huge numbers that we have been motivated to come and start the second season. Starting our season with the latest law, that is goods and service tax, very trend making word nowadays, GST. Everybody is talking in the market about this tax, GST, as it is commonly applicable to all the businessmen and all the categories of people. We are here to know what is the scope of practice for the budding lawyers, as the topics which we take here in our forum are related to the lawyers and legal practices. So let us know from the first hand information from the expert in this field, Advocate H.G. Dharmadhikari, who has been practicing in taxation field, direct and indirect taxes, since last more than 20 years. He has been practicing in excise, customs, sales, CSTAT. He has been practicing from all the tribunals of taxation till the Supreme Court, and now he has started his consultancy as well as practice in this new field of GST. So let us welcome our guest of honor, Advocate H.G. Dharmadhikari. Goes on, I request everyone to kindly register your names and numbers and email ID so that we can keep you updated. Thank you. Friends, let us welcome our founder, Advocate Rahul Maskar, and our guest, Advocate H.G. Dharmadhikari. I would request our founder, Advocate Rahul Maskar, to felicitate our guest with flowers. Please have a big round of applause.
I will start, sir. Today is our GST lecture. A new law had come, and Dharmadhikari sir is having good knowledge and control over that particular new law. So I would request Dharmadhikari sir to commence the program and tell us what is basic GST and how can advocates per se we will be benefited, and our scope for practice has to increase in GST. Sir, please.
Friends, it's glad that you have shown the interest into the GST. What is GST? It's a goods and services tax. Basically, is it a new tax? No. The answer is no. Earlier it was known as the indirect taxes. It was in the form of central excise. It was in the form of service tax. It was in the form of VAT. Now, what has happened? We were having the multiple taxes for the purpose of same cause. Incidence of tax in each act was different. In excise, incidence of tax was manufactured. The moment goods are manufactured, it will be leviable to excise. In service tax, the incidence of tax was providing of service. The moment there is a provision of service, tax is levied. In case of VAT, it was a transfer of proprietary interest into the goods. That is a taxable event, and then tax was levied. So there was three types of taxes which were being levied ultimately on the customer. Ultimate consumers who buy, they pay those taxes. So it had a cascading effect. What is cascading effect? Is tax on tax. Now when excise duty charge is on the basic value, after adding the excise duty and whatever the cess it had, then it is added is VAT. So for VAT the value is value plus excise duty is the value for the VAT. So there is a tax on tax. Now when the internationally this particular system of three tier was already abolished around 20 years back. But in India we continued. The reason is, now this is into inverted comma to all the lawyers. Reason is the government's entire revenue, 82% comes from these indirect taxes. So you can understand who is the litigant in this for lawyers. Litigants are the businessman vis-a-vis department. Because department's entire economy, that is government's entire economy, entire budget, entire expenditure is depending on this income. This constitutes a major income, and to recover that major income, definitely the government officers are going to be after you. Now, there is a presumption now today. See, when this earlier three-tier system, the excise and service tax, basically excise was a domain of the advocates completely. The excise along with the customs, the persons who is practicing in custom law, he is to get the excise law. The similarity in those two laws were of the classification of the goods, where the goods will be classified, because excise also had a different tariff for different goods. It was ranging from 8% to as high as 36%. Similar way, custom also had a similar thing, which slowly after Manmohan Singh government came, of finance minister as came in 94, he reduced that taxation, but still when the excise was abolished now, it was having three taxes, 4%, 8%, 12%. So at that time for lawyers, the classification dispute was maximum. The businessman will try to put same goods into the minimum tax bracket. Department will like to put that same goods into the maximum tax bracket. So the litigation starts. So it is a litigation oriented system. Then came the service tax. Service tax came in the year 1994. And it came under Finance Act, because Service Tax Act there is no special act. Like excise is special act, customs is special act, passed by the parliament. Service tax, there was no law as such. So they brought it under Finance Act. Under every year's budget which is presented in the parliament is always presented under the Finance Act. So you will find the Finance Act of each year. So in the 1994, under the Finance Act, they brought this service tax levy. Is on the services. So initially, there the practice started, advocates come chartered accountants. It was a mix of the practice, chartered accountant. But when it comes to the argument before the court, on the concept, on the basic reasons for levying the tax, reasons for giving the exemptions, then chartered accountants failed before the court. They are allowed to practice up to the tribunal, but there they failed. So ultimately the thought process of the clients, that if I have to go for a court to the advocate, why not to go to the advocate right from the beginning? So slowly service tax practice got shifted from chartered accountant to the lawyers. In VAT, the issue was, before VAT there was a Sale Tax Act. Sale tax got converted into VAT. The difference between sale tax and VAT is, under the sale tax there was a set-off system, and set-off system was per qua the raw material. Qua the raw material is a set-off. In VAT, it was not limited to the qua the raw material. It was limited to all the expenses in your profit and loss account is VATable. You can take the credit to avoid the cascading effect within the VAT. So that's how VAT got introduced in place of sale tax. While introduction of VAT, the central government has published white paper, which is known as a white paper, on the taxation, indirect taxation, and that based on that white paper, what was the object? Object that there should be a uniform tax. Suppose if this flower bouquet is in Maharashtra 3%, so this should be called as a flower bouquet in Delhi also and should be under that particular 3%. That was a noble idea under the white paper. But that noble idea always remains on the paper, because the levy of VAT was given to the states, and states whenever they want to increase, so if it is in Maharashtra 4%, Delhi will charge 10%. So no uniformity. The basic purpose got defeated. And all over India, it had a same product will have different taxation. Then problem started when we open our doors for foreign direct investment, FDI. So all those FDIs, they raise this issue. In India, there is no consistency of law. One product in one state is so much percent, other state it is so much percent. So where is uniformity? How do we come? How do we invest? So government thought process started how to eliminate this, and that gave a first birth to GST think tank committee. That was during the Congress regime. Everything was ready, GST draft was ready, everything was ready, but unfortunately Congress didn't have a political wish or will to carry forward this. The basic hurdle, the entire India had a federal system, states were governed by the oppositions. So taking the state consent was difficult. Even after having got elected with the majority or 2/3, Narendra Modi, he had to fight almost for 2.5 years to bring GST. But each state has to agree first. Now in GST, while doing that, they found out all the mixture. Excise has to be merged, sub-sum, service tax has to sub-sum, VAT has to sub-sum, and then one unified code is to be developed. They thought earlier, like Singapore has a GST of 7.5% only. United Kingdom has a GST of only 10%, flat. But how to bring that here? Well, ultimately, as I said, this is a major earner or bread earner for the central government or union government or any government. If they slash the rate so drastically, there is a possibility of deficit finance again. So then they developed a 3-tier system. There will be 3 rates in GST. 12%, 18%, 28%. And some products were exempted earlier. To bring them into the exempted, they done away with the exemption, but they put into the minimum tax rate, that is 6%. Now there was again a confusion when they said GST rate. Now whether the GST rate means, is it a central rate? Whether it is inclusive of state rate or not? That confusion got cleared just before introduction, before 1 month. That GST rate, say 12%, includes state GST of 6%, central GST of 6%. Now why these two? The reason is, since VAT was totally given to the state, it was a state subject, and excise and service tax was central subject. So they wanted to make an equilibrium. So state GST and central GST. Central GST, central will get its own cake. State GST, but luckily in GST, to decide the percentage is kept by union government with them. Now you will not have a disparity that is Maharashtra 4% and Delhi 8%. No. Where it is 4%, there also it will be 4%. It will be having the unified rate. Now question is, when the GST is introduced, GST is 30 to 40% procedure related work, and that too on online. So that work got captured by the chartered accountants. That is, so naturally the clients will first go to chartered accountant for filing the return, preparing. But the problem starts after that when the scrutiny takes place and show cause notice is issued for demanding a differential tax. There the chartered accountant's competency is lacking. The reason is the show cause notice are not on the basis of mathematical accuracy. Show cause notices are on concept. So for lawyers to understand the concept of the GST is very important. As I explained you earlier that the taxable event under excise was manufacture, taxable event under service tax was providing of service, taxable event in VAT was transfer of ownership. In GST, taxable event is supply of goods or supply of services. Whether it stops here? No. These are two concepts. Further, supply of goods for the furtherance of business or supply of service for furtherance of business, it makes taxable. Supply of goods for furtherance of business becomes a taxable. Supply of goods for consideration, supply of services for consideration becomes taxable. If there is supply of service for no consideration, that is free, then even though it is a supply of service, it is not a taxable supply of service. So these are the concepts, and from where they adopted this concept, all these concepts got adopted into GST from excise and service tax, which was a domain of lawyers. Okay, that was never a domain of chartered accountants. So don't be under impression that GST is left out to chartered accountants. Right now, many chartered accountants have been overtimely working because right now the procedures are on. And within our firm, like our firm is 70% revenue generated from the indirect taxation practice. In-house, whenever we discuss, youngsters like you, they were saying, no, we should take that implementation. We should also do like chartered accountants. So our income will improve.
Basics get clear.
Our basis will be clear. We will be able to know what is the practical difficulties, what is practicability. So I says, we have not yet gone to that because that is a job of punching. It is not a job of the brain. It is a collection of statistic and punching of statistic. Are we meant for that? Chartered accountant, what they used to do, even though income tax practice, because I do the practice in direct taxes. Income tax practice, up to the, right now my own income tax return, I don't file. I give it to my chartered accountant. Because it's not my job of collecting the data, segregating it, preparing a profit and loss account, preparing a balance sheet, coming to the taxable income, looking at the exemptions, deduction of the allowable expenditure, allowable investments. All those job is of the chartered accountants. But thereafter, under the income tax also, when it comes to the litigation, interpretation of the allowable expenditure under this section, then their area ends and our area starts. So my basic guidance to you. Start studying the law, act, understand the concept. Now I will explain you how this indirect taxation practice, and let me tell you, today's all number one lawyers in Supreme Court are gone from the branch of indirect taxation. You take the name Harish Salve, going from the indirect taxation. See the just now presently Venugopal, who has become Attorney General. Rastogi, earlier Attorney General, gone from indirect taxation. Majority of the senior, Kapil Sibbal, you take anybody, Arun Jaitley, great. They went all from indirect taxation. The reason is, in indirect taxation, your concept of the law gets very clear. Your concept of the law gets very clear. Now, question of coming that application of that concept into other areas of the law, like criminal law, like civil law, it becomes very easy. And when you argue on that, the judge falls falls short. I will give one example. Why you should practice in indirect taxes is to understand this fine print of the law. These are the fine print. I will give the example which I used. In Anti-Corruption Act, there is a provisions which is known as 13D, section 13D. 13D means what? That you did the favoritism for yourself or for your higher officer, and then there is a dereliction of your duty. 13(1)(e) is further section which says you have got your assets which is disproportionate to your income. Now this law is been argued n number of times in variety of the cases of anti-corruption. Disproportionate asset, our Tamil Nadu ex-CM, late Jayalalitha case everybody knows. Even Mulayam Singh Yadav's case is also of disproportionate asset. In that, there is this particular 13(1)(e) contemplates that you must ask, that means having an asset is not an offense. Not explaining that asset is an offense. Not explaining the asset is an offense. Now that word, not explaining, nobody capitalized. We coming from the indirect taxation, we are knowing that unless you give the show cause notice, the show cause notice is the basic foundation of every adjudication. First step is show cause notice, and then entire adjudication is built on that, entire case proceedings. I said explain means there is a requirement of show cause notice. How I can explain unless I have been asked for explain? So I developed that plea before criminal court that this section contemplates issuance of show cause notice before the FIR is lodged. All over India I practice in this also. That first thing I got in Delhi, that success got converted. So I got the cases from all over India on anti-corruption. So Delhi court, when first I argued, luckily that judge had earlier practice in indirect taxes, to my good luck. He understood that. He said, yes, show cause is basic cause. It has to be given. He said, that is not given here. And he held in my favor. That entire proceeding got vitiated. Now, that same thing, when we tried in Bombay sessions and all, we could not get the success initially. But luckily in Bombay session, one judge came. He also came, to our good luck, from the indirect taxes. And he upheld that. But department challenged that orders. Department here it is CBI against you. So they challenged that in High Court, Bombay High Court. And I wanted that this particular, my brainchild, must get approved by Bombay High Court, then only it becomes a total law. And luckily it was got approved by Justice Nirgude. And he said this is the essential, and he made a very elaborate order. While doing that, I did a search. Same sort of thinking, same sort of thing was earlier. It was from me, I had not, but when I invented this, I thought of searching backward. Somebody must have thought this way. So I came to know Justice Saldana has also given the same judgment. That I quoted. And now today it has become all over India, this particular thing is quoted and taken as the first objection. So these fine prints comes from the indirect taxation. Now I am putting another case under different tax, that is essential commodities tax, for all these kerosene hoarders and all. There the issue is enabling act, now enabling provision. That enabling provision is basically of indirect taxation. Indirect taxation, there is a levy. Section is there for levy. Then second section you require to have is a charging section. You must be, without a charging section, you cannot implement a levy. So charging section is enabling section. Under the Essential Commodities Act, that enabling section was always introduced by special act. Central act is there, but to implement that central act into day to day, there is an enabling section which was introduced year by year. That means leave and license. Every parliament after a year it has to get extension, and that last extension it had in 2002. After 2002, draft is ready, but parliament has not approved. So there is no act, enabling act. And all over Maharashtra, all over India, cases were booked. Process was issued by criminal courts. So to that we challenge, said, when there is no enabling act, how the process can be issued? This will be offence under the enabling act. Then only you can, your mechanism will start. There, under that only the notification will be issued for adjudication by the criminal court. Otherwise criminal court doesn't have the power. So all those things got squashed. And that too by a High Court. So all these provisions, all this fine print of the understanding the law will come to you from indirect taxations. Because indirect taxation, I will give you if you see the words and phrases under the our law, you will find the words and phrases means, literally taking out the meaning of the word in a feather by feather is only done in indirect taxes. And in words and phrases, that entire book, every word is interpreted in indirect taxes in a different way. Like word like including. In civil law, criminal law, including word, including means it includes everything. So it has got a wider connotation. It doesn't restrict the meaning, it opens the meaning. So when it comes to implementation of that, it is the opening of meaning. So there are such as, example. Now such as does not mean you restrict. Such as is examples. These words are used in all other laws, but its meaning exactly is only it gets defined from indirect taxation. The reason is why so? Everybody will ask why so? The reason is in all other laws there is no monetary loss. There is no monetary loss. In indirect taxation, there is a direct monetary loss. So it has a direct nexus. If you fail to interpret these words correctly, then you are loser of the taxation. Your client may say, "Sahab, आपने क्या किया मेरा?" So, to understand that fine prints of the law, the GST is indirect taxation is very good practice. Now, what are the scope of practice for the lawyers into the GST? As I explained to you, what is GST? GST is not like any other earlier law. It is further. If you read the act, right now I can tell you there are 1000 contradictions. The reason is the law is framed and hurriedly introduced. It was to be introduced in September, but they introduced in July. In that hurry and bury, the contradiction remain into the act. As per my rough estimate, that 1000 contradictions will generate not less than 10 lakh cases. So you can see the scope. Scope for you. And what are those cases? I will tell you now. And therefore you must take the interest into this practice. First, classification, which I had told you in the beginning in Excise Act and Customs Act, the classification plays a vitally important role. Whether my goods should fall under the maximum tax bracket or should fall under the less tax bracket. This is the issue. Today also it continues, but the same classification they adopted. Excise Act and Customs Act is based on HSN, that is Harmonized Code System of World Custom House. That is under WTO, there is a World Custom which decides all over internationally what should be the classification of the goods. And then they give the code number, which is known as the HSN code number. Now that HSN code number is adopted as fundamental basis for GST. So the HSN code, which is adopted as a fundamental basis for GST. Now based on HSN code, worldwide how much is the litigation? In worldwide various countries. It's not that India is only litigant country. That's a wrong operation. USA on HSN code, the cases to the tune of 30 lakhs are pending. And USA today, the law industry, they call it as the industry, is number one earner than even IT. IT is number 3. Number 1 is law. And the litigations are in number. Now what are the scopes? Internationally also there are a lot of scope in this taxation. So HSN is the best of the GST, which has generated so many cases worldwide. So in India, in earlier also in excise, classification was a basic major bread earner for the taxation lawyers. That continues. Now there in India, government comes on bringing the notification under the act. That notifications, each notification generates the cases because it, instead of making the law easy to understand, that notification makes a complication. That notification makes a complication. I will give you the example with one of the case. I am not naming the product. The product is a juice based drink, fruity, is a juice based drink. So that juice based drink, if some carbon dioxide added for the purpose of preservation, so what happens, that juice based drink was earlier put into the minimum bracket. The reason is horticulture in India should be promoted. So those fruits, if it is getting cultivated, there should be market to consume. So the juice should be used as a basis for essence in place of the artificial flavors. That was basic idea of the government when they introduced a horticultural policy in the year 1995. See, for taxation law is majority influenced by the government's policies. Majority is influenced by the government policy. When they wanted to introduce here a computer was in zero tax bracket. All the components and parts of the computer was in zero tax bracket. Because they wanted to increase, they want to make the entire India digital computerized. Today, the computer is in middle class tax bracket, not zero. It has come out of the zero. Similar way, this fruit juice base was put into the small tax bracket. The moment CO2 added, some notification was issued in some particular part of the, if it is includes CO2, then it should be called as a soft drink, aerated soft drink. Issue went on in Excise Act. Luckily, tribunal under the indirect taxation held no, it is a fruit juice based drink, because under the all this, because in taxation, it is not only you have to deal with taxation law, it has, you have to deal with basic law. What is basic law? Basic law is licensing law. Like the fruit product, any fruit product was earlier controlled by FPO, Food Product Order. That was an order passed by the parliament and an entire mechanism. Today it is FSSAI. Now today it has become Act. So there all this product gets classified and they are licensed, they are controlled. Now when the licensing authority controls, they control and they classify the product in that also. If there the juice percentage is less than 5% or 5%, it is used as a flavor. That only gives a flavor to that drink. That it is apple, this is mango, this is, so 5%. But the moment the juice drink is more than 10%, then it becomes a juice based drink and never flavored. So there the restrictions are more. There the labeling requirement under that controlling act, that you must mention that it is a fruit drink necessarily. So then we produce before the tax authorities all these basic laws, that there is a difference. You can't call me as a soft drink. You cannot make me in the queue of Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola. Why we have to give the example? Because Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola, now everybody knows, is health hazard. These drinks are not good for our health, and therefore it is to be put into the maximum tax bracket like tobacco. If you see today, all Campa Cola, all cola and this product, soft drink product, are in the maximum bracket of 28%. GST. The reason is they are health hazard. Government doesn't want to give them any concession. Whereas this juice based drink, pure juice is in 12% and juice based drink is in 18%. The reason is they are health drinks. They are healthier. So in that, under the VAT Act, the notifications were issued and then cases all over India got built up. Ultimately, we could argue the case in Supreme Court, which reached to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court decided, no, it is not an aerated water. The basic process, see, in indirect taxes, you have to learn very hard. It is not that you have got the brief and you can argue within 2 days or 3 days, it is not. But earnings are fabulous. But hard work is equal to that. It goes commensurate with your hard work. You can be a best lawyer if you have done the good hard work. There, I will give the example how you have to go into the deep. What is the difference of aerated? What do you mean by aerated? A simple, we do take the aerated water every day. We take the soda. What is aerated? So how is the process of aeration that you need to study as a lawyer? The water which get impregnated soda and which makes a aerated water. In case of aerated water, we added with the essence. First, the water is made aerated water, and then the flavors are added. Whereas in case of fruit juice based drink, process is exactly reverse. There, first juice is added to the only simple water. Then it gets fermented. You know, since majority of the ladies, the heating process is to kill the bacteria. We do that in our day-to-day cooking. That kills the bacteria. So that is fermented. After the heating thermal process, it goes into the seasoning process. Some seasoning, bringing it to the room temperature. Thereafter, the CO2 is added as a preservative. So the addition of CO2 cannot be called as a aerated water, because here basic water is not aerated. So you have to put all this process study when you argue the matter. Okay, what is the distinction? How it has to be distinct? Done only in taxation you will get the success. I have another case which is under case study. This is already decided, so I disclosed. Another case is there. You must have crossed the road many times. How many times you people have thought of zebra lines, which are either in white color or in yellow color? What is that?
It is meant for crossing. It is meant for crossing.
Yeah, but what is the that?
Thermoplast.
Correct. It is a thermoplast. It is not a paint. It is not a paint. Again, the question of taxation will come.
What is thermoplast?
What is thermoplast and why thermoplast? What is thermoplast and why thermoplast? The thermoplast has a more binding effect. It binds the road for longer time. Paint, the moment vehicles are run for 1 month, it will go off. It will get peeled off. So either that contractor will become rich so thermoplast. Now, who is making this mandatory provision? The mandatory provision is made by a Ministry of Surface Transport, which is known as the MOS. They put this mandatory restriction that you must use thermoplastic material. Then only your road zebra crossing will be approved as a safety. So the issue came whether it is a paint or whether it is a special chemical. Because the moment it is special chemical, it is at 5%. The moment it becomes paint, it becomes 20%. Lawyer business. Like that. Now, this is only a goods I have discussed. There is a services. In services, a particular type of service will have different colors. Now, question is, when 2-3 services, I will give the example of, everybody may be knowing about the CHA, Custom House Agency. That Custom House Agency service which he gives has different pigments into it. One is clearing the goods, filing of bill of entry, clearing the goods from the customs, or filing the bill of lading for export. Plus, Nobody wants, no manufacturer wants. He will say, once I appoint a CHA, it is CHA's business. How to take the goods or how to bring the delivery from the port to my gate. That is his job. Then he has to hire the transporter. He has to, suppose warehousing problem, then he has to do the warehousing. All these combat things, all these expenses he will charge. He is not going to pay out of his pocket. Now once it is charged, whether that entire bundle of services is to be called as a CHA service, or is to be called as a transport service, or it is to be called as a logistic service, again the matter of classification.
GST, all services are at 80.
No. If they do that, then we lose our business. They have given that scope to us. There are 6%, 12%, 18%, 28%. As usual. The moment you say CHA service is at 18%. The moment you say it is a logistic service, see the word change only. Logistic service, it goes to 12%. And the moment you say it is a transport service, again it will go back to 18%. And the moment you say it is a pure agent service, it will go to 28%. So it ranges from 12% to 28%. The issue of the bundle of service, how to classify. Then there are principles of interpretation, general rules of interpretation. Now all this is not a test, cannot be a cup of tea of the chartered accountant. Here legal terms has to be interpreted. In the rules of interpretation, whenever it comes to the bundle service, the service which gives or which partakes the essential characteristic is to be decided as a deciding factor. Bundle service. So which it partakes essential characteristic. Now under CHA service, if the CHA, why is the CHA service, all these bundle services will be classified as a CHA service? The reason is that service, the predominance is of CHA. Who can make an entry under custom area? Only CHA. So his job becomes predominant. No GTA, no transport operator can ever enter into the custom area with this truck. So that transport will not get that doesn't partake the essential characteristic. The essential characteristic is parted by a CHA. So it becomes CHA service. Like that, this is one example. Like that, there are almost 150 bundle services. 150 bundle services. In the earlier era, we had one issue and we had cases of 7 lakhs in different court. The issue was whether the composite contract, now I am coming to the civil law, whether under the composite contract, if there is no provision of vivisection, what is composite contract? Goods plus labor. Works contract. If composite law, if there is no provision or value cannot be vivisected because it is not clear what is the value of goods, what is the value of services or labor charges, then whether can you charge a service tax? That was the issue.
And then there were valuation rules for that.
No, that issue went to and fro journey. There is a first judgment of Delim, which was approved by Supreme Court. Again the issue was in a taxation, to our good luck, there is no res judicata. No issue gets settled. It is again re-agitated. So our churning is over, continuous. So same was got again re-agitated. Then there was a judgment of BSBK stating that even though there is no provision, it can be artificially vivisected if if it is values are available. And then service tax can be levied to service portion, good VAT can be levied to the VAT. This VSBK again went all over India and toppled down by Supreme Court in L&T case. To understand the nitty-gritties of the indirect taxation, you can read L&T case as a Bhagavad Gita. It is the best principle. You will understand all the principles, all the phraseology used in indirect and direct taxation. Because that judgment is a masterpiece delivered by Nariman, Fali Nariman's son, youngest lawyer in taxation, with clarity and depth. So if you read that one judgment, many things will get clear.
May I have the citation?
I will give you. Okay. So, like this, now this is one L&T case which was there in earlier laws. Now there is going to be a 1000 L&T cases in GST. So, there is an ample scope under GST. There can be a valuation cases, there can be a classification cases, there can be a interpretation cases. Now what is supply? I will start with the first supply word. What do you mean by supply? How much, what do you understand by supply? By your dictionary meaning. Because taxable event is supply of service or supply of goods. Okay. Try.
When you say supply means rendering of services.
Okay.
Sale, exchange, etc. etc.
Okay.
Section
Try.
7.
Try. I am not getting a correct answer. Try.
Fulfilling the demands.
Fulfilling the demand. No.
Exchange of goods from one hand to other hand.
You are come nearer. Much nearer.
Flow from one person to another.
You also come nearer, but not to the end.
For consideration.
That is whether taxable or not. But if I am purely on the word of supply. So how many interpretation now you people did? Five. Supply means one leg of supply is a dispatch, other leg of the supply is receipt. Only sending the goods, providing the services is not a supply. Sending the goods and receiving the goods, the supply word gets completed. Providing the services and receiving the services, then the supply is completed. Now, why I have given you example this. The entire GST taxation base is on that supply word. Now, what is GST tax? What is the GST tax? There are n number of taxes is called, like a wealth tax is on wealth, income tax is on income. That is, suppose you earn income in Bombay, it's income tax of Bombay. What is GST tax?
It's a tax on value addition at each stage of supply, each stage of manufacture.
Yes, but your answer is not complete.
Supply of goods and service.
But what is the tax? What is the classification of that tax? Each tax has got certain classification, some certain colors. To interpret, I will make you further lighter. The goods are supplied from Maharashtra to Gujarat. Supplied. The supply is completed. Now, which tax?
Destination based.
So it is cannot be called as a destination, but it is a destination is quite nearer word. It is a consumption based tax. GST is consumption based tax. So the event is supply, but tax charging section is on consumption. That means at receipt end, not at dispatch end. The moment I supply the goods from Maharashtra to Gujarat, which tax will be applicable? Now it is IGST. Earlier it was CST. Earlier it was excise in Maharashtra. So earlier there were two tax. It had two tiers, one excise and one CST. But both was going to whom? Central government. Now IGST is going to whom? So what is the central government? A number one baniya. He will not like to lose a single farthing of his income. So he made a tax by which his income is protected. The moment there is an interstate supply. Now word interstate. Now you understood Maharashtra and Gujarat is interstate. There is another word which has been technically word which has been used in intrastate. Many people get confused in intrastate and interstate. Intrastate means within the state. Then the question will come, the goods are supplied from Bombay to Nagpur, what should be the tax? So now I am asking you the question, suppose the value is 100 and the taxable GST rate is 18%. That is 19%, 9% is CGST and 9% is SGST. How will you tax? How you will prepare the invoice of tax?
100 rupees the basic value plus CGST 9% on 100. That is 9. And again SGST 9% on 100. That is again 9.
So both the taxes are charged on 100.
100 less.
Whereas in earlier provision, the last tax was always charged on the value plus tax. So the GST has avoided the cascading effect. The another thing which has been done while introduction of GST is they are done away with all the cess and done away with the octroi, entry tax. The octroi and entry tax were never vatable. They were always had a cascading effect. On the total value, that is value plus tax, that was a gross value chargeable to the octroi. So that is done away. Now what happens? Where this income was going of entry tax and octroi? Not state. It is local government, local self-government. That is municipal corporation, municipal parishad and all those. Now they have to be compensated. Their income is lost. So that is being compensated from the GST. Now have they increased the taxation? No. Why the cost? What is the cost? The reason is your fuel bill, that is import bill of your diesel, is drastically going to be reduced by 40%. Because trucks were standard at the octroi nakas, we are consuming 30% extra diesel. So that much foreign exchange is saved. Because entire crude oil is imported. So there is direct reduction in 30% in crude oil. So it's not only a tax regime. Now any tax law has a direct effect on consumer. It has a direct effect on inflation. These are now economics. It has a direct on your consumption, your day-to-day expenditure. The people are wondering that whether we can get the reduction in the prices immediately. No. The effect of GST will be felt by a common man only after a year. After a year, you will find that there is a stability of prices. There will be a stability in the economy because of the savings of this foreign exchange and tax reduction, overall budget outlay cut. So effect we will get after a year or 2 years. After a year it will start getting, and after 2 years we will have the complete impact of the GST on our economy. So therefore the GST practice is useful for a lawyer to understand the economics of the entire this thing. Now question comes, under the GST, under the Customs Act, there is an anti-dumping duty. What will be the anti-dumping duty's effect on GST, or what will be the GST effect on the anti-dumping?
Import will be less, so will have an impact.
When the anti-dumping laws were interpreted by us, the anti-dumping laws, what is anti-dumping? Why it is anti-dumping?
To protect the domestic industry.
What China is doing, putting goods here for 5 rupees.
Their manufacturing, I will explain you the basic definition and when it is called as anti-dumping.
Between the
Suppose China's supply within China of X goods is say 100 rupees. Their yen is there, but 100 rupees example. And if they supply that same goods to India at 70 rupees,
30
will be the anti-dumping, will attract the anti-dumping. What is the sales price within your country? And if you are exporting on the sale price, is okay. But if you want to take Indian market, so you are selling at the dump.
yes,
So this is known as anti-dumping.
dumping margin.
Now, how many people knows a marketing concept of dumping? It's not only India, China, or India, Japan, or this thing. Within India, there are dumpings. Example I will give you. All these multinational soft drink companies, they do the dumping, they sell the goods at cost, less than cost price, just to capture the market. And the biggest example, we all educated people got into a trap of Reliance. Earlier, it was monsoon bonanza of 500 rupees mobile, by which he could reach right up to sabji vendor. He made us, our job, our life, totally dependable on mobile. Then came smartphones. All this is known as a dumping. All this making you habitual, what is not necessary to you, is known as a dumping. To make it feel you that it is necessary. Are we not living earlier when the mobile was not there? Initially we thought it's the fastest communication. Started with that, but ended with what? 90% time is consumed on WhatsApp. Where our reading habits have gone? I see in the High Court or any court, majority of the lawyers, instead of listening to the case, busy on their WhatsApp. And sometimes judges also. So this is known as anti-dumping. Who is benefited? The person who invented that idea and made you fool. This is dumping. And to make that dumping reduction, the laws are made. Now why I am connecting it with GST? When the GST will be coming and getting settled after a year, the government will bring certain notifications under GST to reduce some rate, to do the correction rate, that is meant for the economics purpose. It is known as a fiscal measure in the economic term. So that fiscal measures, they bring the taxation correction. Reduce the tax of certain commodities by which their inflation rate will come down. And there the notifications are so worded by which minimum 50,000 cases will generate it. There are ifs, buts, provided, not provided, so provided. All these words are meant for interpretation, generating the cases. So you understand how much is the total volume of litigation which you are going to get after a year or 2 years.
So the first 2 years is time for learning.
Time for learning, making your foundation pakka. To make your foundation pakka, this is a time, golden time. Don't look at the chartered accountants. Look at you. Make your foundation. The moment your foundation is strong, you will be earning faster than them or more than them. Their right now monthly package of that whatever work they are doing, maybe 50,000, 60,000 per company, looking at the volume of the company, or 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs. But your fees, once the case is built up, per appearance will be 5 lakhs. So where your income and where will be their income? He slocks for a month, he gets this much. You will slog for 2 hours, of course burning the light earlier 2 days, but you will get monthly package as your daily package. That's the difference between the lawyer and chartered accountant. And therefore the taxation law is most earning law, but you need to work hard. Criminal law is a law of mind, presence of mind. Civil law is law of interpretation, law of procedure, because criminal law is governed by CRPC, Criminal Procedure Code. What is CRPC? Is enabling code. IPC, all are there. But if you want to implement IPC, you have to take the help of CRPC. Civil Procedure Code is another tool to implement the civil law. So these are two laws are procedural law. Because it has a procedure, set procedure, limited scope of interpretation. Whereas under the GST, entire jahan is ours. There is no procedures. Procedures are completed with chartered accountant level. Then what comes to us is to interpret, make something new which nobody has thought of. So your thinking of out of box is very much essential. Before winding up, I will give you an example of Nani Palkhiwala. Why he was always taken as one of the most efficient and most intelligent lawyer. I had a personal experience with him. We were arguing the case together in Supreme Court of, you must be using, everybody is now using the plastic tubes, but earlier it was aluminum tubes of toothpaste. So that aluminum tubes, the tubes are made out of the aluminum. After that it is lacquered, then after that it is coated white, then printing material is there, and then it is capped. After filling the material, it gets crimped at the bottom. So that time it was a central excise law. Tariff entry was 27. Under 27E, the entry for that, for charging the excise duty, was extruded shapes and section. At that time there was a valuation dispute all over India, on which the concept got developed, which is known as post-manufacturing expenses, because excise is a duty on manufacture. So after manufacture, whatever is expenses, were called as the post-manufacturing expenses, which was known as the PME. On that should not be added. So the basic duty is on manufacture. So up to the manufacturing of aluminum stage, because it's a aluminum extrusion, that is the only entry. So what all the aluminum tube manufacturer all over India developed the term post extrusion expenses. There it is post manufacturing expenses MRF judgment. Post extrusion expenses is the collapsible tubes. Now at that time big giants were there, Metal Box, Zenith, all those big giants were there. So the case law got developed, and in Supreme Court that this particular case was tagged by the department, by government, because huge government revenue was involved. They tagged it before the same bench who decided post manufacturing expenses under MRF, and said that post manufacturing expenses need to be added in value and duty should be charged. Government's 3 budget got financed by that, by one judgment. So this is the impact of indirect taxes. Then this came before the same bench, and we were discussing one day prior. We always hold a conference which lawyer knows. All the lawyers are having same issue, they have conference. And I was one of the lawyer for one of the client. Lalip Alkure was for Metal Box. And big names were there, Anil Desai, Ashok Desai. So then we had discussion. Nani Palkiwala said, okay, you discuss. He went for a 5-10 minutes for a round, came back. Yes guys, what is your strategy? He asked everybody. Everybody said, this is our strategy. No, I don't agree with your strategies. He said, okay, what is your strategy? He said, no, I will not disclose now. I will discuss tomorrow in the court. He says, okay. Luckily, my room was next to him in the hotel. While coming, he said, Heman, avi jao, dinner sathe hamare sathi le se. ठीक है sir. Having a dinner with him was a very great thing for me. So I went to his room. After, sir, if you don't mind. नहीं, तमें लिख कर सो. I said, I promise. ठीक है. अरे ये सब लोग पूरा कॉन्सेंट्रेट, एक गधा जाता है उसके पीछे 10 गधे जा रहे. PME expenses, ours is not PME, ours is post extrusion. Arey, what is difference? Nothing is. Ultimately, after the manufacturing expenses, whether to be added or not added, that is already decided. Suppose we argue on the same point, we are going to lose. Sir, what is? Arey yaar, look at the entry. Sir, entry is extrusion shapes and section. Look at second year's entry, subsequent entry. After this PME judgment, they have introduced new entry. Now, what is that? Look, Tamil, look, 27F. So I read that. Yes, it is. Here it is plain tubes, printed tubes, coated tubes, lacquered tubes. So my argument is tomorrow in the court of law that up to this year, your classification itself was restricting my value only up to the extrusion. And if that is not required, then why did you introduce a new entry? See the thought out of the box, totally out of the box. So next day he argued. Justice Bhagwati it was there, Chief Justice. So Justice said, but Mr. Palkhiwala, it is not there in your petition. He said, it's a question of law. Why it should be in the petition? I am putting it to you. No, but government has not replied. Give them a chance. Ask them what is the objects and reasons for introduction of this new entry. Come with the fair hand. It is not that WS usually they file. I want detail with the objects and reason which was placed before the parliament. Immediately after 15 days the case was decided, came up. They came with the objects and reasons. In that note that Revenue Secretary has written, since in PME case we have won, But there, the issue was classification was not there. But in this extrusion case, possibly classification issue will come. So include all these expenses, we need to add this entry. And he said, this is what government has accepted, that earlier these expenses could not have been added. And so they have introduced the new entry. Case was decided in our favor. But this is the out of box thinking, that it's not value, but let me take the advantage under classification. So understood, these are the magnitudes of the GST. So start learning the GST from the foundation. Okay, any questions?
So just a question over here.
Yeah.
How would the states get compensated on account of the difference between the revenue that they have been earning till now and the revenue that they will be earning henceforth after implementation of the GST?
Good question. In the present GST, there is a SGST, that is state GST, which has been calculated. How this working went on, that I will explain you, because I was a part of some study group. The working went off of taking the earning of the VAT of each state and increasing the income for next 5 years is already taken care into it. And thereafter the VAT, suppose you put 6%, 9% or 12%, what will be the position? That was worked out. And accordingly these percentages has been worked out on the quantum of the sale of those goods or supply of those goods, services. So it's not only going to compensate, I will give you an inner thing. Why it was necessary to introduce GST in July? Who was after it? What was the compulsion? No. The compulsion was Devendra Fadnavis. Maharashtra salary was made out of the toll collections. And it was getting dried because their electoral promise is that they have to close the tolls. So there was already deficit. And there was nothing. The moment GST is introduced, the Maharashtra government got thousands of crores of rupees from central government, which does not carry the interest cost as a compensation. And that is the reason why it is from 1st July. Because Maharashtra is basically commercial capital, Mumbai. If that would have gone into the bad debt or debt crunch, the entire economy would have been collapsed. And that was hurry. People thought it is Ambani or Adani. No, it is this reason. So the state will be compensated, has already got compensated totally. Whatever the Mamata Banerjee says there. But her finance minister recommended this GST. Is a Giffen's paradox. CM opposing the GST, finance minister recommending the GST. Any question?
Thank you so much, sir.
Those were the scintillating words from the first-hand experience person, Advocate Hemant Dharmadhikari. Please give a big round of applause. In very simple words, I felt like I was sitting in a classroom today. And also I am glad that this was an awesome start for our second season of our forum, Hammurabi Tablet. I would request our founder to honor our guest with a memento. Please give a big hand. Sir,
I must say thanks to the Hammurabi Tablets for giving me opportunity to share my thoughts with you. And it's not that I am somebody, I am part of you. Okay? So whenever you think of doing GST, you are most welcome to my firm for any of your query. nothing will be charged.
Office address.
My office address is one is here in Fort, Karim Chambers, ground floor. Karim Chambers is a building which is in the Kandil restaurant lane, and there is a cafe. Correct. Milan Cafe building, backside of the Milan
Backside of
Cafe.
Milton Cafe.
Okay. Even though if I am not there, my juniors are no more juniors now, they are seniors. They can, because our online service is also there for all the GST queries.
Sir, we have a tradition. We ask our guests to give a feedback. Even I'll request my friend Siddharth Kalka to give a vote of thanks today.
I am thankful to the Hammurabi tablet to giving me this opportunity to giving the vote of thanks. I am thankful to our guest and myself, H.G. Dharmadhikari, to giving the immense knowledge of the GST and the scope of practice on the GST in which we advocates or would be advocates will be doing. I am also thankful to the Delna to giving the Teapot Cafe where we are sitting now and enjoying the lecture. Also I am thankful to the Vidyut Shah of MNJ for supporting us in this lecture. Also I am thankful to the Uday, who is a cameraman, for capturing the beautiful memories. Last but not least, our founder Rahul sir for conducting these seminars, and many of the seminars he has conducted to give us the knowledge and also to share the knowledge. Thank you.
I request Rahul sir to announce next lecture.
Next lecture is on 16th of September and third Saturday, 16th of September, and same time, same place. The topic is scope of practice in cyber law. So we have a guest, Advocate Manish Kenia. He is extensively practicing in cyber law. He also visits various institutes all over India for giving this particular presentation on cyber law. So I would equally request all of you to be present because it's a new concept, and he will again tell us various nitty-gritties in that, because again in that case also there is some confusion whether the software people are more towards cyber or it is the advocate who can go towards that. So he will give an insight to us in that. So be there on 16th, and thank you for today. And at the same time I thank you all that because of you we completed 1 year, and I am hoping that because of you we will go on doing this program for years to come. Thank you.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा, तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे, गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you.
Thank you.